Hey, it's Andy here from SheetReady. In the last tutorial, we learned all about the ribbon. That's this area to the top of the screen here. In this tutorial, we're going to learn all about the sheet, the bottom section. What is it? How does it work? And I'm going to give you a basic overview. Okay, let's get started. The sheet is made up of cells, which are each of these little rectangular items here. Each of these is called a cell. Now, cells can be referenced by rows, as you can see numbered 1, 2, 3, etc. and columns, which you can see referenced as letters A, B, C, and so on. Now, by default, when you first start a Google Sheets spreadsheet, you have 999 rows. And if we drag this down and get to the very end, there you go. We can add some more if we want to. When it comes to columns, we have 26, so all the letters of the alphabet, and we can add additional columns, and if we do, the lettering starts at AA and then AB and AC and so on. So you can add many more columns as well. So let's have a look at cells. Cells are really what gives spreadsheets their power. That's because each cell can store information. But not only that, individual cells can work with any number of other cells by referencing and manipulating the information in each cell. So, the information that we find in an individual cell can be in three forms. Firstly, we have data. That is just a number or letters or a word. Secondly, we have formulas, and these are user-defined equations. So for example, it could be plus or minus or a combination of mathematical equations. And thirdly, we have functions. Functions are predefined programs, and they're like more complex maths equations, and they can also be logical commands or manipulating data in some way. So we will cover formulas and functions in another tutorial. So looking at a cell now, here's an example of how to use it. So let's select the cell up in the corner here, cell A1, and that's referenced by firstly the column and then the row. And let's just add some data to it. Let's add a number, 50. No particular reason. Let's add another number below it in the cell A2, 25. Now in this third cell, instead of adding raw data, what we'll do is add our own formula. So we press the equal sign, and there's two ways we can reference another cell. The first is to just click on it with the left mouse button, and then I'm going to type in the plus sign, and then I'll click the second cell, and then we have a result, 75. I'm going to write next to it sum, just so I know that that's adding the two. The other way that we could have done that is, I'll just go back to the start, is to press equals and then to type in the actual cell references, A1 plus A2. And we end up with exactly the same result. You'll notice that I just put in lowercase and it corrected it to uppercase. Now if you can imagine the possibilities of what you can do with data and formulas and functions, it's virtually endless because it can be customized to just about any application you can imagine that involves data. And that was just a tiny, very basic example. And in upcoming tutorials, we will look in more detail at some basic formulas and functions, and we'll start to put them together. As you use spreadsheets, there might be times when you want to add or remove an entire column or an entire row. For example, in our mini table here, perhaps we want to add another number. Now to do that, we could right click here and we could say insert a row above. We can also insert a cell, but if we do that, we'll say insert a cell and insert cell and shift down. Now this sum is on its own and it doesn't really mean anything. We go back a step. If we had have selected insert a row above, then it would move all of the data down by one row. Now the same can be done for a column. Let's just right click on this cell and we'll insert one column to the left of it. If you want to insert multiple rows and columns, you can select, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the left mouse button, and I'm right clicking, and I can insert 5 rows above. But notice that when I selected on the cells, it didn't give me the option to insert rows above or below. To do this, I actually have to click on the row reference itself across to the left, and that's this ruler that you see over here. So if I was to select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then right click, I can actually insert 5 rows either above or below. And the same thing applies for columns. I should be able to insert the columns to the left of my first selection here, or to the right. Let's go to the left. Great. Now it's very easy also to delete columns and rows. If I come back over here and select all of these ones that I've added, I can right click and I can delete them. Same thing here. I should be able to do it either by clicking on these 3, deleting those columns, or at the top. In this case, it doesn't really matter. I often quite like working on the rulers themselves because you do get some more options with this contextual menu, which you can access with the right mouse button. Now, something else that you might want to do is you might want to copy the contents of an entire row. For example, let's put some more, we'll get rid of this, and we'll put some more numbers in. These are just random numbers. So if I want to copy the contents of that row, I can right click, select copy, and I can move down to where I want to paste it, and I can paste either just normally or special, which can be values or formats or formulas, etc. In this case, I'm happy just to paste it. There we have it. So you can imagine with quite large data sets how powerful this can be. You don't have to manually type things, you can copy and paste, and it will do it in blocks as well. So let's just say that we had a specific block of cells that we wanted to copy. We can right click, copy, and we can select our starting point and paste, and it will take it from the left upper cell and paste it somewhere else. Same can be done in columns. Let's left click on a column and copy, and we'll paste onto our ruler bar and paste, and there we go. Something else you can do with rows and columns is to hide and unhide data. Let's just say, for example, that we had this row that we wanted to hide. Let's right click on it and we can hide it. Now, the trick with this is if you're doing this in spreadsheets, you might not always know that data is hidden, but there's a little clue, and that's these little arrows here. So we can select the arrows and it's unhidden. To hide it, we right click and we hide. You can also hide multiple rows. So now that that row is selected already, if I hold down Shift and then left click on 40, I have access to all of these rows, and now I'm going to hide rows 21 to 40. There we go. So to unhide, again, you can click here with the mouse, or you can select these two and right click and unhide rows, and they're all back again. The same thing applies to columns. So if we want to hide columns, we can select, we can hide. Now we can come back and we can unhide. Where this comes in handy is sometimes you might have a whole bunch of data that is really a series of calculations that is not really what you want to present in your spreadsheet. So if you're happy to keep that information there, and if you need that information, you can always hide it off to clean up your spreadsheet. Okay, so let's clear all this data. To do that quite simply, if you select this this area here in the top left of the sheet, let's click that. You can then hit delete, and what that will do is because you've selected this, you've actually selected all of the cells in this sheet. So be careful, but if that's what you want to do, you can come up here and hit delete and everything is gone. Okay, the final thing I want to cover here is down the bottom where you can see the label here, sheet 1. This is the label for our sheet. Now, what we can do is we can actually create a new sheet by clicking on this plus sign. You can see that I've done this before. Usually it would just be called sheet 2, but in this case it's called sheet 5. Now, you can also select a sheet by left clicking on the name, and if you double click, you can rename it. So in this one, we might have names. In this sheet, we might call it numbers. If we wanted to copy some data, let's put in some names here. If we wanted to copy this sheet, we can left click on the drop down and we can duplicate it. Okay, then we have a copy of names and we can double click and we can rename that. If we want to move our sheets, we can hold down with the left button and we can drag them around and change the order up. Something else that I don't really use is if you select this all sheets, you get a vertical list. And where this might come in handy is if your sheets have long names, what will happen is that you'll run out of space across the bottom here. So this could be a useful feature to save you a bit of time so you don't have to scroll to the right by selecting in a different way the sheet that you want. Now to delete a sheet, we simply grab it and delete it. Do you want to delete this sheet? Yes. So I'm going to rename this back to sheet 1 and I'll delete this sheet. Great, so that's it for this tutorial. Hopefully it's been helpful. If you like the content, please subscribe. And in the next tutorial, we're going to look at formatting. How do we format our data? How do we make it look appealing? How do we make formatting work for us? I'll see you then.